I think we are living amongst a number of emotionally coddled generations.
It's emotionally immature.
Who take any sort of critique or coaching as a piece of negative and personal feedback.
Right.
And
or as a personal affront.
That's devastating. Welcome to this week's episode of Teaching Keating. Hi, Dance Mom. You're a dance mom.
I'm not.
You are. You are a mom of a dancer.
I am.
By definition.
It's funny because people are going to immediately associate it with that crazy show that was on forever ago. I didn't realize how old that show was. And then Char was watching it, was like, this show's ancient. And also, they do a lot of unsavory stuff in here. Like, I can't even believe this was allowed on television for as long as it was. She was in a real phase of Dance Moms for like a minute. And
Char asked us to sit
it.
down and watch Dance Moms with her. Mm-hmm. And so I did.
Yeah.
Number one, I enjoyed it immensely.
I'm sure you did. It is good for like the trash television, but after it you feel like, oh my gosh, there's so many things wrong with this.
It's garbage TV.
Yeah, and like, oh, these poor little girls are so traumatized.
But I love...
And the level of abuse was pretty high. I don't know.
I not so secretly love to hate watch a show like that.
Yeah, which Char did happily with you, and it was really great.
Because Char and I love to talk during movies and shows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
you and Everett hated about us.
We don't hate it about you. It's not our favorite characteristic.
Yeah, you do. I was so upset the other night because it was you, me, and Everett sitting there watching a movie.
Oh, thank
Char
God.
was at
it was
dance,
great. Mm-hmm.
And I was so mad because I didn't have anyone to talk to.
And then you kept trying to ask us both
I kept
questions,
trying to ask
and we were
both like, "Be quiet."
No.
I'm like, God, Charlotte's not here.
That's great. We got through the movie and understood everything. It was wonderful.
So we're not going to talk obviously exclusively about Dance Moms. That's a pretty narrow.
I know.
But you were at you were at a convention with Charlotte.
Yes. So this is my gentle entry into the convention world, which for anyone who's not a mother of a dancer out there, there's like two different tracks. Let me just like set the table for you. So there's a classical track, which is ballet, right? And that's the majority of what it is. All the different variations of ballet, but only ballet. And you can compete in conventions for those. Or there's this other track, which is like contemporary, jazz, modern, hip hop. Groove is a new form that I didn't know about.
I'm sure it's new to us.
Tap, it is new to us. I don't know how new it is. But the guy who puts on the convention, Wade Robson, do you know who he is?
No.
Okay. Well, I don't know why you would ever know him. So he's a relatively famous choreographer, but that's not really what he's famous for. If you saw the Michael Jackson documentary, Leaving Neverland.
I did, and it was horrifying.
So he is one of the people in that. And that's sort of how he became famous. But, you know, I don't really I can't speak to that part of his life. You know, look him up if you guys want to, or you can go watch the documentary or whatever. I actually just heard there's another one coming out, which is like the second piece of it. But, like, I don't want to get too muddy or in the weeds about those things. But it is sort of astounding that this person who has had such a very public and traumatic sort of experience in life and in his art has put this conference together. So he... from what I understand, is the person who started the Jump Conference, put it together, and then he was one of Char's teachers. He's part of the faculty. And it's a rotating faculty, obviously, because they have them all around the country, and you can't have the same people all the time, whatever. But I was astounded at sort of just like the level of expertise that they bring, how amazing.
You sent me some video from this. I wasn't able to be there. I was working.
Yes. Yeah.
You sent me some video. Yes. And my first thought was like, the coaching and the teaching that's happening in this is awesome.
Right. And so staggering for me,
and
my
bar for good coaching and teaching is a high bar.
Very, very high. And so that's part of the reason I wanted to talk about it with you and just kind of go back and forth about this, because it was so, first of all, a lot of people, you know, like you never get to see people in their element when they're really masterful at something, right? It's such a unique experience. I think sometimes we take it for granted when it's like a sporting event or some sort of art, you know, whether it be like a performance or something like that.
I think it's so awesome to see people who are great at anything be great at their thing. It brings me so much joy.
Me too. So it was such a unique experience, and I think it was when I'm sending you all these videos because I was like, oh, just like the teacher part of me immediately geeked out. And I actually went up to one of the faculty and just told him what an awesome teacher he was. And I was like, oh, thanks. My mom's a teacher. And I was like, I can tell.
Yeah.
You know, like I can immediately tell your methodologies, the way that you're teaching the kids.
Your mom's a teacher. Yes. I can tell your mom's probably a hell of a teacher.
Yeah. Like the way you're chunking things down and just, you know, so like that in and of itself, that experience was great. And then all of the learning that just sort of came out of just like watching people be masterful at their craft. And all of the faculty, I mean, they were lights out, amazing. She loved the hip hop guy. He's really funny. I can't remember his name. Dang it.
It's fine.
Ricky something. But anyway, amazing faculty. So if your kids have an opportunity and they're dancers and they want to go to this jump conference, I cannot recommend it more highly. It was amazing.
Are you working for this conference now?
No, I just was so impressed.
Did they?
I was very impressed. And teacher, educational geek.
And commission
nothing. They don't even know. I was the random mom sitting with the other random moms there, you know, watching all the kids. It was just amazing to watch people in their craft.
Before we get into sort of like the why.
Yeah.
Just in the spirit of our podcast, like top movie, TV coaches.
Oh, this is good. Yeah, great question. Craig T. Nelson.
Oh my gosh, he's one of mine.
He was great.
Hayden Fox.
Yeah.
Also based on what actual coach, Molly?
Hayden Fry from
the University
of Iowa. Yes, I
Go Hawks.
I like Tina Fey in Mean Girls. She's not really a coach, but she's super funny. She's the master, whatever. She's really funny. I don't know. She was really funny.
She's the teacher in Mean Girls.
I love it. Anyway, that counts. She's good. I really like the guy who's in Friday Night Lights. What's his name? Kyle Chandler. And I only saw I only saw a couple seasons of that show. It went on for a real long time. I didn't see all of them.
Clear Eyes, Full Hearts, Molly.
Yeah. He was just really good. I thought they got like the Texas part. Who's the guy who was in Aspen Extreme? Does anyone? I'm dating myself. No one knows what that movie is. Peter Berg.
Not only are you dating yourself, like you're so Colorado
Peter Berg.
Right now.
Yeah, it was an awesome movie in the early 90s.
Just so you know, so many people outside mountain towns and communities have never seen Aspen Extreme.
Whatever. Peter Berg was in that. It was like one of the first things he did, and he did Friday Night Lights, and I love him. He's done a lot of stuff. Mostly he directs. I don't think he acts at all anymore. But anyway, Peter Berg did Friday Night Lights. He was awesome. Anyway, so that guy, Kyle Chandler. And then who else did I really like? I was thinking about this and now I don't know. It was another lady. Oh, the one from Cheer on Netflix.
Monica.
The real one, Monica. Yes. She's amazing.
She hit us up
She's
on
great.
Twitter back when Twitter was a thing. Yes, she did.
Because when we did the podcast?
Because we podcasted about her.
That just like
and
makes me feel real big right now.
She reached out to
She's
us.
amazing.
Yeah.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
We've talked about it. She's an outstanding. Lights out. Anyway.
Scandal noted when it comes to Cheer.
I know. That wasn't her. But sad. I know.
So sad.
So
I like a cross. I like a cross between Craig T and Ted Lasso.
Oh yeah. How did I forget Ted Lasso? Love it. But
I like the intensity.
I'm up there too.
Of Craig T. I like the relational element of Ted Lasso.
Love it.
I think both of them separately.
Yeah.
I think Ted Lasso is too bumbling for me.
Good use. Yeah, that's a good adjective for him.
Craig T is too
angry.
Hayden Fox is too closed off for me.
Okay.
I like a middle ground of those two.
I like that. That's a good middle. Are those your two?
Yeah, I'll just go with those two.
Go ahead.
Yeah, my other ones are like actual coaches.
Good.
Like
that's awesome.
I think Herm Edwards is awesome.
Great.
Like I use the quote that I heard from him, like a goal without a plan is a wish all the time. Nick Saban, I think is like,
obviously
he's a pinnacle for me.
Neither one of us said Dion. And he's local. I feel kind of bad. But he's done great things turning it around.
What Dion has done for the University of Colorado is extraordinary.
If they never win another game, and I'm a CU alum and I really love the Buffs, but like
Dion doesn't get enough credit from enough people for understanding college football the way he does.
Right.
Like he understands very clearly like this is a game of marketing and recruiting. And I'm going to surround myself with other really good position and X's and O's guys. But you know what? Like he gets the marketing and recruiting part better than anyone else in the country.
Right. And CU is a legacy program. And I don't think people outside of Colorado really understand the level of dumpster fire that program
Nobody
was for
talked about Colorado football until Dion came along.
And all the alums were like, what is happening?
It had been since Rashawn Salam was there.
Yeah.
And that was what, 30 years ago?
And you coached with a guy who has a ring from that national championship.
I know.
He was equally as...
Shout out Mike Freeman.
I know.
Backup quarterback for that team. Doesn't matter if you're a backup, still get the ring.
You have that ring.
So let's talk about
great coaching.
Let's talk about coaching.
Sure.
I want to talk about why you were so enamored.
Yes.
Both of us were so enamored with the coaching that we saw, because I think there are certain elements of a really great coach that are sort of universal.
Sure.
So what's the stuff that you saw that you really, really liked?
So I just want to kind of zoom out really quickly too. I think that something that really struck me was, I previously said that we didn't, not a lot of people get to see people in their craft do really well. I have a unique perspective in that because I get to watch you, just to big up you really quickly.
That feels good.
You're really great at your craft. And, and I get that I'm your spouse. And so, you kind of feel proud parent there, like up there watching you do your thing. But even more than that, I can tell when you were in the zone, one, you love what you do and you love your content, but more, you're just really happy to be there. You love the people. You really mean what you're saying and you want the best for them, and you're all on the same page. So it is just like super authentic and you're about it. And when you're in the zone, like all of those things sort of align.
I think you have to love it like that.
Yes.
Coaching is so hard.
Yes.
It's so time consuming.
A lot of energy.
And you have to invest so much, like physically and emotionally.
Yes.
Like if you don't love it, you'll never survive.
Sure. So because I have like that unique perspective going in, I think I was even more excited and sort of enthralled, like watching these people, because I knew, I had seen it, and two, I knew what it is and I knew what to look for.
Yeah.
So I just was even more excited for a girl, probably more so, they're teenagers and they're tired and they're, by the time, like Sunday at 3:00, they're 72 hours in and they're exhausted and they're not sleeping at the hotel. They're just waxed.
But their coaches weren't.
Their coaches were amazing. And they were just like, we don't care that you're tired. We don't care, give it your all every time. And so just all of the feedback that she got around behaviors and around getting in, just such great feedback, take every opportunity. No one's going to wait for you to jump in. One of the faculty said, like, one of the things that I hate about your generation is that you guys just like wait to see what everybody else is doing before you make a decision. He was like, stop doing that. It's bad. Who cares about anybody else? You don't know when the next opportunity is going to come in. So like, just take it. If somebody asks you, like, if you're ready to jump on in, stop being scared and just do it. It doesn't matter how you look. So just like a lot of really beautiful nuggets all the time.
You were talking about the feedback
the whole weekend.
part. Like this is the thing that I wish more teachers would take from really great coaches. Because if you watch a really great coach, it is, hey, there is a clear outcome. Here's a thing that we're working towards right here. Right. And it is like consistent feedback for immediate implementation.
Right.
And this is the thing we get wrong in classrooms because it's like, okay, like let me write my outcome on the board. Right. Whether there's clarity or not is fuzzy. Right. And then it's like, okay, let me give feedback. Let me give feedback at the end via your exit ticket when now there's no time to do anything about it until I see you next time. And coaches are awesome at understanding like, no, this feedback is for right now in the moment for immediate implementation. And then I'm going to see if you're able to take that feedback and use
Make the corrections.
And it's constant. It's constant.
I mean, obviously it's a dance conference, so they were learning obviously the choreography and
still teaching skills.
Agreed. That's what I'm saying. That's why it was so masterful, because you're learning the choreography, you're doing it, and the guy who I talked about being masterful, I mean, they were all really great, but he was teaching tap, which is not hip hop. It's not like the most exciting thing that they're doing, but he was amazing at it. And I literally stopped him. And if there's one thing that you do as a coach or a teacher, the I do, you do, we do will get you.
I do, we do, you do.
I'm sorry.
Gradual release model. I do, we do, you do.
Well, and I was doing it in the order he did it. So he did, I do, you do. So he would do it, they would repeat it, and then they would do it together.
Yes.
Okay. So, it was
still all three parts.
Right.
Still great teaching.
And I was like, if you do that forever, if that's the one thing that you do in perpetuity in your classroom or in your coaching for forever, it never gets old. It can go across all curriculums. It's just so great. And he's accompanying the kids.
We miss this part so many times in classrooms because it's like, hey, teacher's going to do a thing. I'm going to model here on the board and then you're going to go do it. Right. It's like, no. Like you're missing a really critical piece in the middle where it's like, hey, you partner in a group of 2 or 3 and then we're all going to collaboratively work on this. So you have each other as lifelines. Right. And then you have like the individual display of competency. We skip that middle one. And frankly, it's potentially the most important one.
Yeah. Well, and even just like continuing using like that same example, like, you know, a lot of the teachers, because there's like 200 kids in this room, and they're all, you know, they're all in different age groups. So our daughter was in the teen, but then they had a young group, and then they had like a senior high for like 17, 18. I mean, it's a giant convention. And so there's like 200, 300 kids in the room. So you're masterful at management because you got to get them back. Granted, there's music and they're moving, but it's a
you
lot
want to talk about
to
class
manage.
Size? There's 200 people in the room.
Yes.
But also, like, here's one of the things that people are out there thinking. They're just like, well, yeah, but all those girls want to be there.
Sure.
No, they don't.
No, they're exhausted. Yeah.
No, they don't.
Sure. I will speak to that in a second. I just want to finish like how great he was. I just want to say this last point, which is just he went down. So like he got off the stage and went and tapped like next to the kids, you know, like he's in there with Shar. And I was like, you're masterful.
Yes.
Like, just, you know, like geeking out and being such a nerd, but being so happy to watch him just, again, accompany like, oh, okay, I just showed you the step. Now you're doing the step. I'm going to come down there and do it with you. Let's all do it together. I'm going to get in the mess of it and let's all figure it out. It was great.
This is the epitome of if you don't know it, you can't grow it.
Great.
I have this conversation with school administrators all the time because they're like, oh, I want to grow instructional competency in my schools and amongst my teachers. Yeah. And my comeback for that is like, hey, if you don't know it, you can't grow it. Like if you don't have a strong pedagogical foundation, if you don't know what good instruction is, what it's called, what it looks like, sounds like, feels like, how to implement it, then you can't grow it. Like then you're asking the people that you are taking care of, your teachers, to do a thing that you can't do. It's my biggest frustration and pet peeve with school administration right now. Like you're trying to grow a competency that you don't have.
Well, and I'll loop back to my, like the point that I want to get, because it's in schools and it's also in coaching. It's just across the boards, right? You see something and it's really amazing and you know that it's awesome, but you may not necessarily know how to do it, which is why I loved it about all of the faculty, which is like, not only are they masterful at their craft and doing it, they also know how to teach it and see it repeated and replicated over and over and over again. So that part I loved.
That's a big difference, right?
It's a huge difference.
You can know your content.
You see it all the time.
All the time.
I see it all the
you
time.
can know your content up, downs, and backwards, forwards, and sideways. Like, but if you can't teach it, it doesn't matter.
Can't communicate it.
Like your content knowledge is secondary to your ability to distill that knowledge and teach it according to these certain skills.
Yeah, you got to be able to translate it to the kids, and they have to be able to understand what it is and then give it back to you.
That's the fundamental difference between telling and teaching.
Sure.
And too often, like we misinterpret those or use them as synonyms. It's like, well, if I tell you, then I've taught you the thing. No.
Yeah.
Telling is not teaching. Yeah. Teaching means you can distill it and you can get other people to replicate it.
Well, and to your point, like we were talking about, like you were saying, oh, all those kids want to be there. No, they don't. One of the, not negative feedback, but just a challenge that I noticed for the, you know, and I get it. It's probably part of their business model or whatever. So you have all these people like coming in and out and you group all these kids. And there was a very, very clear distinction between like kids who knew all of the choreography and knew the music, kids who had a little bit of sort of like understanding, kind of where our girl was. She's taught more classically trained, but she has experience in all these different forms of dance. And then there were kids who were sort of like raccoons who have no idea what's going on. In all three of the groupings.
Kids who are raccoons who have no idea what's going on?
Kids. More of like a recreational dance. No.
Raccoons.
Sorry.
Rec
like
kids.
Just, like more of a recreational format. Like we're going to do this, but it's mostly for fun. There's not really a competitive element. Yeah. And so amongst that, you know, like my teacher brain was like, I don't like the way this is scaffolded. You know, if they do summer intensives, which is uniquely ballet, you know, they kind of categorize kids when they first get there. So like that's an option. I don't know if that works for their business model because it's a pretty small window and I don't know how you test all the kids or have the teachers do it ahead of time, just because you and I know, again, teacher brain is like, ooh, if the level is super high, you know, of difficulty, kids' ability to risk is low, you know? And so I saw a lot of kids, including our own daughter, sort of shrink back from that, which I was kind of bummed and disappointed because, you know, and as I'm learning, because I'm not a dance mom, I'm learning all these kids, like there's a whole group of kids in dance schools who just like travel these circuits and they know that that's all they do. And they know the teachers and they go to these competitions and they know the choreography, they know the music and they just go, you know, from city to city to city to city. And that's what their experience is. We're like, that is not our dance, our daughter's experience, they go to like a handful a year. They don't do the competitions. They go only really for the convention aspect. So like the learning, which I love that she had, but we didn't really set them up for success of like, okay, here's what this looks like. And here's how to be at the front and really like gain all the knowledge and all the wisdom and everything you can while not competing, while not being in the same group of kids, And so like the teacher brain in me was like, ooh, we should probably have maybe scaffolded this different so kids could risk a little bit more.
We needed to set her up for success more.
Yeah.
Quite frankly.
Yes.
Because one of the conversations we should have had with her was just like, hey, when you are with a new coach,
right,
and when you are in a new group,
right, here are the expectations.
It's important to be upfront,
right, so they can
be
see
first
you.
in line.
Yes,
work hard.
Yes,
ask lots of questions because so many kids operate under the presumption, well, like, I'm here, so they'll see me.
Sure, no,
straight from a coach's mouth. No, we won't.
No. Not when there's 200 kids in the room.
No.
Yeah.
And
sure.
And the thing is, like, that's just a hard truth. Yes. And
I wanted her to risk a little bit more, but I also understand, okay, this is the teen group. They're all feeling insecure and worried about what like thinking that everyone's looking at them. A lot of it is developmental.
And she's amongst the youngest in that group.
Sure.
As a 13-year-old, she's with 14, 15, 16, 17, 18.
No, she was, sorry. So the two groups, like the senior group was 17, 18. They put
so
16,
13 through 16.
Yeah. Still,
either way,
it's a big spread.
When you're 13 years old and you're in there with kids who are 16,
agreed.
like that's...
Agreed. It's a big spread.
It's a daunting place.
And developmentally, just, body awareness and all of those things, like there's a lot of differentiation that just comes when you have grown into your body, you have more maturity. It was still invaluable. The coaching was invaluable, but just like the teacher part of me was like, oh, we probably should have segmented these groups a little bit more because I wanted it to be a safer environment for the kids who weren't as good, who don't do the traveling, who don't know all the choreography, to risk, because it was such a good conference. So I wanted to, but that's teacher speak, real geek stuff, and very sort of specific, most of the parents wouldn't know to even ask or look for that.
Go
ahead.
Let me ask you this.
Please.
Are good coaches always positive?
Ooh. You tell me. You coach more.
That's all right. I'll ask it again so we can edit that part out.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this.
Sure.
Are good coaches always positive?
I think they're always positive about the content or about your... Oh, see, now I'm fumbling it. I don't know.
No.
Okay, I was going to say, sorry, here's what I'm doing. I'm thinking through coaches that I've had in the past, like wondering if they're always positive. And as I was saying, like, oh, I think they're always positive about maybe like what they're teaching or like the sport. And I'm like, no, they're not. If you're not doing it right, they'll chew your butt. And that doesn't always work for every kid.
Good.
That worked for me. I was highly motivated by like, not shame. Not shame.
No.
And let me clarify that. I don't mean shame or insulting, my character or my person, but, thinking my ability was maybe beyond what my actual ability was and then helping me tweak that ability to be better. Sure. I could take that feedback, no problem.
Good coaches are always positive about the kids. Yeah. They're not alys positive in their communication.
Thank you. That's what I was going to say. So I was going to say positive. I hope that they're positive about the kids. And honestly, I hope they're positive about what they're coaching.
Yes.
But their communication doesn't, if you do something poorly and they say you do something poorly, it's funny. Shart is telling us about one of her dance. She's testing and some of the feedback was like, oh, that was okay. You could do better here, here, and here. And we laughed. We were both like, that she sounds like a great coach.
I love that.
I did too. It was really good. It wasn't a positive piece of feedback.
This is a...
To this person. Yeah. But I liked the feedback, and the feedback actually was accurate too.
I think there's a misinterpretation that a lot of kids currently have about good coaching.
Like, oh, they hate me?
Yes.
Yeah.
That any piece of feedback that isn't laced with positivity is an indication that the coach hates you.
Or dislikes you.
And that's not the case.
Yeah.
Like, if the coach is giving you feedback, that in and of itself is inherently positive.
They're seeing your ability.
Correct.
They're seeing you. They're watching
seeing you and they're investing in you.
Right.
And I think one of the conversations we have to have with kids is like, hey, like the vehicle through which you get coaching is not always going to be positive.
Right.
You want the coach to be positive about you, right? But the vehicle through which that coaching comes is not always positive. Sometimes it's going to come aggressively.
Yes.
Sometimes it's going to come loudly.
In your own case.
Sometimes it's going to come in a way that that feels like a critique.
Right.
And our challenge is like, okay, how do we take that piece of coaching and use it to advance?
Well, and I think too,
versus taking that piece of coaching and taking it so personally and immediately like that's such an excuse moment of like, oh, well, this coach just hates me. You know why? Because it absolves me of any responsibility for improvement. Now it's about you.
Well, and I think, I don't know if it's generational or just, you know, the adolescents that we are coaching or involved with, maybe both. I do think there is some aspect of responsibility that sort of the adults need to take, which is like, I don't know if we're raising soft kids. I don't think we were raised really soft. I don't think our parents gave a lot of craps about about it. I don't think they thought about it a lot. But I think consequently, because they didn't think about it a lot, generationally, I don't necessarily see, you know, us as soft. I do think there's some tendencies and behaviors that I think younger generations have that aren't, you know, that are a little bit more, tends to a little bit more fragility of themselves.
I don't even think it's just kids. I think we are living amongst a number of emotionally coddled generations.
It's emotionally immature.
Who take any sort of critique or coaching as a piece of negative and personal feedback. And
or as a personal affront.
That's devastating.
Yeah. And it's limiting to their success, because ultimately, if you could get out of the way of seeing that as like a personal attack and see it for what it is, which is feedback that's meant to help you grow and to advance in the thing that you're trying to get better at, remove yourself from it and your feelings, throw all of that away and just like hear it for what it is. Stop taking it so personally and get after it. And I do think kids need to have a thicker skin.
If you have
across
kids,
the board.
If you have kids who are athletic or artistic, and you're seeing in them at any age that they can take a piece of feedback or direction or a critique and implement it and remove themselves from that emotionally,
it's really masterful.
Your kids are going to be great.
Yeah.
They're going to be just fine. Like, and I'm saying
it's a high level skill.
I'm saying that as a parent who also like, I worry about our kids, you worry about our kids, but I'll tell you what, like in those moments where I see them take a piece of coaching or direction or a critique and implement it and remove themselves emotionally, I'm like, okay, you're going to be just fine.
And we have gotten some really encouraging feedback around both of them, just saying that they both are relatively okay with taking feedback, one more than the other. But I don't know if it's necessarily, you know, the environment that they're in, but I think they're both doing a relatively decent job at sort of receiving it and then turning it into what it's meant for, which is using it. It's nothing's perfect. And I also think, and that's not to toot our own horn, we're really hard on our kids.
They've been receiving coaching from us for a while.
And we hear it to the point of like, you know, I have family members who have been like, you're really hard on your kids. And I know that. And part of it is our, both oldest children personalities, but I also feel like, well, I'm not my kid's friend. Like, I'm not trying to blow smoke. I'm not trying to coddle them, although I'm sure I have in some ways or other. Nothing is perfect. I'm not a perfect parent. I mess it up all the time. But I do think they are pretty tough in the way that we speak to them, because we speak to them like this. And so they have received that for the entirety of their lives. And so because they have received it, their way of receiving it is maybe less sensitive than other people who then take a similar posture in the way that they're speaking to them.
It's the difference between giving your children the world and giving your children to the world. And when you put them out there, knowing that like when you give your children to the world, like they're
can't protect them.
Not bulletproof, but they've at least got some armor. They've got some experiences.
We're working hard to do that. We're working hard to give them armor.
Because I don't care. I don't care if our kids are the most artistic. I don't care if they're the best athlete. The only thing that matters to me, are you coachable and teachable? Because if you're coachable and teachable, like forget just sort of like the artistic or athletic endeavors that a lot of kids, like that's going to serve you well in your work. It's going to serve you well in your marriage. It's going to serve you well as a parent, because I'll tell you what, you're going to take coaching and feedback in all of those areas. And if you can't receive it, you are going to die a very quick and very painful death.
And not being so insecure that you can't remove yourself your identity from what you're actually hearing. Like, this is not about me. It's just about some behaviors that they're saying that, like need some tweaking. Great. That's information. Information is helpful. Then you can do something different. Then you can make a different choice. I don't know why getting information about your behaviors and trying to tweak and make them better is negative. I just think it's, culturally, again, it's perceived as sort of just a little like too harsh. And I'm okay with harsh. I want to give my children to the world, and they're going to have to be out there at some point. It's coming quicker than we want. And, they need to be able to handle it. Go ahead.
What's the role of patience in a good coach?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, to have any.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not familiar really with this.
You can't survive in coaching or teaching without patience.
You have to have it. But it depends on the kid. I know that I've historically been patient with some kids and less with others.
Is there a shelf life on patience?
Yeah, I think to your point, coachability, when kids receive the same feedback over and over and over again and make no changes, then
bingo.
Yeah.
Yes.
Then it's like, hey, you're either not hearing me, I'm not articulating this to you well, or we're just signals getting crossed, or you're ignoring me. Either way, this is no longer a productive use of time for either one of us. So let's move on.
This is a conversation I have with kids all the time.
Yeah. I don't love that.
I'm telling them all the time, I am great to give you a piece of coaching.
Yes.
Like I have no problem giving you a piece of coaching. Where this relationship goes awry is if I have to give you the same piece of coaching 2, 3, and 4 times.
Well, 2 is, okay, talk about harsh. I might need the same piece of coaching a second time. I understand 3, 4, 5. Is it like a unique skill? I'm thinking like teaching, they're not going to get it the immediate first time. So maybe a couple, like 2, 3, 4.
No, but it's like if this is a mistake that you continue to make multiple times after multiple pieces of coaching, like the hard truth about teaching and coaching is that the best we can ever do is lay teaching and coaching at a person's feet.
Yes.
And then they have to pick it up.
Yes.
And if they choose not to pick it up, and the conversation is like, I'm not telling kids like, if you don't pick it up, I'm giving up on you.
Right.
But the conversation I'm having with them is like, hey, there's going to be times in life, whether it's coaches, teachers, or a spouse, boyfriend or girlfriend, where it's just like, hey, if you're getting the same piece of feedback over and over and over, and you're making 0 changes, or it's obvious you're making 0 effort towards those changes, like, don't expect that patience is infinite.
Right.
Because that's not real.
That's a good distinction, because I was going to say effort is the thing that matters for me. It's work hard, right? Not every kid is the same.
Correct.
Even the same piece of feedback can be heard completely differently from one kid than to the next. One can execute it. One, it might take 30 times to execute it, right? All those things you can't control. But what I want to see is the effort and the work hard, the investment putting in, even if they don't get it right, it's the shift in them that there's at least an attempt to shift the behavior, right? Whatever the outcome is on the behavior, whether they get it on the first try or the 40th.
Correct.
That for me is the distinction, and I think it's really important, especially for kids.
Yeah, effort goes such a long way.
And some kids can literally, you can give them a piece of feedback and they can repeat it immediately. I was never that kid. I was never that kid in the classroom. I was never that kid on the sports field. I wish that I was. I didn't have it, but I could do it after a lot of practice. Actually, this is really interesting. Huberman was telling me, like we're best friends.
Just talking to
totally.
Andrew Huberman?
He talks to me. He called me. No. Yeah. Was talking about just neurologically the best points of like learning anything new is you work on it for 5 minutes, then you take 10 minutes away, 5 minutes again, 10 minutes away, 5 minutes away again. And I don't know the neurological like patterns of
John
why
Hattie
it works.
calls that spaced practice.
Okay, thank you. Well, there's a lot of history. The Russians have been studying it since the Cold War, apparently. There's a lot of research on it.
It's
don't tell me why it works.
It's chunking.
But yes,
it's
chunking.
Yes.
And that's what I was going to say. Back to the dance thing, that's all they did was chunk things out, in their own variations. Sometimes they heard the music first, sometimes they didn't. Sometimes they wanted to get the beat, sometimes they didn't. Sometimes they chunked the whole thing. Sometimes they learn the first 3 pieces, then do the music, then the next 3 pieces. Everybody had their own different version, but it worked beautifully because, again, chunking, but apparently the sweet spot is 5, 10, 5, 10, 5 for 3 times.
Yeah.
In any activity, which I was like, great. Wish I would have known that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Every teacher
Yes.
out there is like, I don't have time for that. Like, I have so much content to cover.
Totally.
Well, it's the difference between covering and uncovering.
Yes, and retention.
Yes.
I don't know why the brain does. There's a lot of research.
Just because you've covered it.
Yes.
Just because you told the thing doesn't mean you've taught the thing.
Right.
And it's hard because it's counterintuitive.
Sure.
Because it's like, man, it feels like I'm spending less time on this.
Yeah.
And you might not be spending less time on it.
Right.
You're just spending less time in certain chunks.
Right.
Like you're dividing it up across multiple skills.
Yes.
Like that's the goose that lays the golden egg when it comes to teaching and coaching.
It's true. And you can see it across all disciplines. Final question for you, since you've been hammering with questions. What is like maybe like the best piece of coaching that you've ever gotten? Do you have one?
The best piece of coaching.
Or like feedback?
I'll say two things.
Sure.
And I'll put this through sort of like a teacher lens for just a second.
Great.
There's the one that I talk about all the time where I taught my very first lesson as a classroom teacher, as a student teacher.
So bad.
And my mentor teacher, Kirk Dado, like it was I bombed. I bombed my first lesson. It was 50 minutes of garbage.
Yes.
And Kirk Dado, my mentor teacher, all the kids walk out of the room and he looks at me and he goes, well, that was shit. And I was just like, wow.
Honest feedback.
I was like, that's aggressive.
Yeah.
Like it was accurate, but it was aggressive.
Yeah.
But then he coached me up. Like he didn't tell me a thing
didn't leave it there.
that wasn't true to sort of coddle my ego. And I was in a place to be able to hear that. Yeah. One of the other great pieces of coaching and feedback I ever got from a mentor teacher that I had. Yeah. I was really down on like. I was in like my second or third year of teaching. I was really down. I had a really difficult class. I was struggling. Yeah. And like some of the kids were just a giant pain in the ass. Like any teacher out there can tell you, like we've all had these classes and
they're different from year to year.
Yeah. And one of the best pieces of advice and coaching I got was he said like, hey, never let a 16-year-old determine your self-worth.
Yep. It's really good.
And it was
any teenager.
It was like a light switch for me because what was happening was that was feedback I was getting from the kids that I was taking personally.
Yes.
And what I needed to do was take that feedback and recognize like, ooh, I've got to make some modifications to my practice, not some modifications to my persona and who I am as a person. And that's what I was I was internalizing. I was like, not all these kids like me. Like, what do I need to do to make them like me? No.
Yeah.
Like the only thing that matters, what do you need to do to be effective? And don't let a 16-year-old determine your self-worth. Like, do what you know is best for kids and listen to the feedback that they're giving you.
Yeah. Also, it's funny, like, you know, teenagers, they're ruthless. And they're very pack mentality. And they see a weak link and it's like somebody hops on. It's like that, you know, the Jurassic Park where they're
velociraptors.
They are the one raptor prods
and they always hunt in packs.
And they do. They hunt in packs and they'll get you if they see anything. And you can't be Teflon, but you have to be human. But it's a very nuanced.
If you show vulnerability, they'll expose it and then they'll pick at it.
And they have no filter in terms of cruelty or just like what, you know, because they're still adolescents. So they're like learning all those different things. It's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough.
They're in survival mode. What about you?
The last piece
of coaching.
I always liked, and I don't know if this is coaching or just a piece of feedback that always has resonated with me, just to measure myself against myself. Don't try to be anybody else. They're already taken. And that was always really good. It's something that I always sort of live my life by, but like when it was said out loud to me, I was like, oh yeah, that's true. And definitely me, you know, just gave me permission to compare less and work more on the things that were already my gifts. And that is nice. It's liberating. It's very freeing, like as a teenager or a young person, for someone to just be like, hey, hold the phone. Don't worry about all this other periphery noise, everybody else. You're not going to dance like that person. You're not going to act like that person. You're not going to talk like that person. You're not going to be, you know, you're not going to look like that person. Throw all that away.
And comparison is the thief of joy.
It is. Yeah. So it's just like giving me permission, like saying that out loud to me, even though if I already like had thought it or known it was true, like it was really profound for me to just be like, oh, okay, let my belly out a little bit, and I'm just gonna walk through. It's great. It was really helpful. So
awesome.
yeah,
I love
great
it.
coaches.
All right,
great coaches. Get some great coaches
Thanks
for your
to all
kids.
the great coaches out there. Thanks for listening, you guys. Like, subscribe, leave a review, and you can find me in Texas this week. You can find me just
all over,
bebopping around.
All
Molly,
over
where can
the
we find
lower
you?
48. On the baseball field. Everett made the team, so I am going to baseball. It's great. I've been talking about it, and now it's here. So I'm ready. I'm ready.
I love it. All right, we'll see you guys next week. Be well.